First speaker, I will give the stage to Major Agus Yudhoyono.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be here once again at the second International Conference on Futurology. I've been asked to deliver and talk about the future of warfare. Let me begin with this. Our generation today is fortunate because unlike the previous Cold War generations, we'll no longer live in the menace of a global nuclear holocaust. However, we still live in an international landscape marked by war peace. It is an uneasy peace marked by the persistence of old conflicts, new disputes, new strategic rivalries, possible arms race, proxy wars, and other security issues. Indeed, we must remain vigilant to the various sources of future conflicts. What are they? First is the increasing resources scarcity and competition. For example, the conflicting interests and competition over energy resources in the Caucasus region. Second, disputes relating to ethnic, religious, or ideology issues, as what we have seen in the latest case of Myanmar's Rohingya, as well as the spreading of hatred fueled by the harassment of Islam portrayed in the film The Innocence of Muslims. And third, the unsettled boundaries, just like what we observed in the South China Sea recently between several countries. Fourth, political turbulence and geostrategic shifts as we see in many of the Arab Spring countries. And lastly, the breach of universal values such as human rights or hot issue like weapons of mass destruction in Syria, as well as the growing tension over Iran and North Korea in recent years. In all this, the challenge is to prevent disputes from escalating into conflict. When conflicts already take place, then prevent them from breaking into war. Most of the recent conflicts of the world is intrastate, and they likely remain so. However, this year we are seeing an increasing tendency of interstate conflicts. Here, the real danger often lies on the strategic miscalculation by the disputants. Now, what differentiates warfare in the future is the prevalent use of technology. The warfare will be much more high-tech oriented. Space, cyber-based infrastructures, precision-guided missiles, drones, robotics, laser systems, and various other sophisticated weapon systems and equipment. As we often saw from the media footages, fighting a war can appear like a video game. And the aim is to minimize human casualties on the part of the user while neutralizing and punishing the enemy. And I believe that those militaries on possession of such technology should be able to resist the temptation to be trigger happy. And in this context, the human factor will remain important. No matter how technology evolves, it is no substitute for man. And war, or upon whom the success of warfare depends, and you can use all the drones in the world. You can use all the modern assets and maritime power. But ultimately, war is won by boots on the ground. So, in this context, mental toughness is still the key. And militaries should be able to be adaptive to fight the enemies who continue to evolve, who continue to learn and adapt. And therefore, leadership factor will remain critical in any of the given warfare. My next point is that asymmetric warfare will likely grow in terms of numbers and capabilities. So the quality and the quantity will increase. And asymmetric warfare here means that warfare where the two belligerents are mismatched in their military capabilities. And when we talk about warfare or asymmetric warfare, there is an increasing likelihood that the non-state actors will try to acquire new and more sophisticated weapon systems, including WMD, weapons of mass destruction, for them to be able to enhance their asymmetrical advantage while at the same time better challenge their adversaries who are possessing great military power. This is what Israel found when they confronted Hezbollah fighters who used sophisticated technology such as the Katyusha rocket launchers, anti-tank weapon systems, as well as drones. In the future, we should anticipate seeing more hybrid wars, where conventional warfare, irregular warfare, asymmetrical warfare, and information warfare all blend together, creating a very complex and challenging situation to the combatants. And such complexity will dominate our future environment. And this will require military forces to possess hybrid capabilities for them to be able to fight and deal with hybrid threats. And I'll say that traditional or conventional posture is still relevant and fundamental in any military development. However, in the same manner, military should also be equipped with irregular capability. Another future prediction is that urban warfare will become much more important in the future. And as has been explained by previous presenters, that urbanization has become so rapid in recent decades and will likely be so. And today, more than 50% of world population live in cities, and it is predicted that by 2025, the world will have nearly 30 megacities with a population more than 10 million, and most of them will be in Asia. So the likelihood that future wars will be fought in the terrain of cities will therefore inevitably rise. And this makes warfare extremely complex and complicated. And this will require a very specialized skills on the part of soldiers on both sides. And again, in this context, the human factor will remain ever more critical. In fact, operating in urban terrain or urban area which is heavily populated, soldiers will have to exercise the interpersonal skills and should be supported by the cross-cultural awareness, especially when the operational environment is outside the country. Therefore, winning the hearts and minds of the local populace is key to success, because soldiers on the ground will have to cope with peoples who are defined as human terrain. However, dealing with human terrain is not as easy as we would have thought. Although the US-led coalition forces invaded Afghanistan and Iraq successfully in their initial phase of the military operations, their subsequent presence in those countries actually encountered significant and serious difficulties, especially in the prolonged counterinsurgency operations, as well as in dealing with the various security issues. Which brings this to my next point, that invasions will become much more difficult and complicated. Quick victory does not guarantee any long-term success. And as I mentioned earlier, that invasion may lead to protracted warfare, which will be more costly and will have more consequences, including inflicting more casualties. And in today's world, the political, diplomatic environment or circumstances are such that the decisions to wage war ever more challenging. Now, the big question is whether in the 21st century we will see another world of alliance system. Right? This is a very important question, because as in the 20th century, as well as the previous centuries before that, such alliance system had led to major wars and even world wars. And today, after the crumbling of the Cold War, the Western alliance system remains mostly intact. And in fact, it expanded, like what we observed in the NATO and a series of bilateral alliance treaties. The next question will be whether there are other countries outside those Western alliance structures who will eventually evolve their own alliances. Well, we do not have the answer to that question as yet. But what Indonesia hopes is that such alliance will bring a greater effort in maintaining or establishing international peace and security, instead of waging more wars or armed conflicts. And we should guarantee that such alliance will not create new tensions or rivalries among countries, just like what occurred in the Cold War era. And what is likely is that in the future we will see more proxy wars. We are actually already seeing this happening with considerable intensity in Syria today.